Looking back at the first week of protests and riots in big cities like Los Angeles and New York, following the ICE raids that sparked unrest in June 2025. The first week, Los Angeles in turmoil.
And we're in the Westlake area. This is very close to downtown Los Angeles. Skyfox over the Home Depot out here off of Wilshire Boulevard. Just moments ago, officers from ICE were out here. That's going to be the Homeland Security, and they did take some folks into custody.
The tense confrontation came after a day of federal immigration raids across the city.
Los Angeles, a city known for its resilience, is once again at the center of history. In the first week of June 2025, protests erupted following controversial ICE raids, quickly escalating into unrest. Streets filled with demonstrators, law enforcement clashed with crowds, and the National Guard was deployed as tension soared. Businesses burned, highways were blocked, and the city found itself in the grip of chaos.
Self-driving vehicles set on fire. Crowds shutting down the 101 freeway downtown. LAPD officers trying to move them off. The moment a U.S.-based correspondent from Australia reporting on the protests. You can see there she's hit by an officer's rubber bullet. President Trump going over the governor's head, sending the state's National Guard to the scene, and tonight he's now sending hundreds of these U.S. Marines. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, leading us off tonight on the scene in Los Angeles. Matt is one-on-one with Border Czar Tom Homan tonight.
This video takes you through the first week of the Los Angeles riots, examining the events that led to the unrest, the key moments that shaped the protests, and the response from officials. Through eyewitness accounts, footage from the ground, and expert analysis, we uncovered the reality of a city in crisis.
Dozens of people were reportedly taken into custody. This eyewitness footage appears to show one such raid, in which caravans of unmarked military-style vehicles and vans loaded with uniformed federal agents streamed through LA. ICE agents targeted several locations, according to the Los Angeles City News Service, as part of President Donald Trump's extensive crackdown on illegal immigration.
Day 1, June 6, 2025. That morning, ICE agents conduct immigration sweeps in downtown Los Angeles, arresting individuals near a Home Depot in Westlake and an apparel business in the Fashion District.
And we're in the Westlake area. This is very close to downtown Los Angeles. Skyfox over the Home Depot out here off of Wilshire Boulevard. Just moments ago, officers from ICE were out here. That's going to be the Homeland Security, and they did take some folks into custody.
The tense confrontation came after a day of federal immigration raids across the city. Dozens of people were reportedly taken into custody. This eyewitness footage appears to show one such raid, in which caravans of unmarked military-style vehicles and vans loaded with uniformed federal agents streamed through LA.
That afternoon, word spreads about the arrest, leading to small protests outside of the federal building.
Trump has vowed to arrest and deport undocumented migrants in record numbers. Live video of the subsequent protest showed LAPD officers lined up on a downtown street, wielding batons and what appeared to be tear gas rifles. Angelica Salas is the executive director of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights.
Our community is under attack and is being terrorized. These are workers. These are fathers. These are mothers. And this has to stop.
Authorities had ordered demonstrators to disperse around nightfall.
That evening, the protests escalate with vandalism and clashes between demonstrators and law enforcement. Some protesters throw bottles and rocks at officers, prompting police to declare an unlawful assembly.
This has to do with what ICE is doing, conducting raids through Southern California, 3 of which were done and met with great protests yesterday near downtown Los Angeles in the Fashion District.
Day 2, June 7th, 2025. That morning, reports emerge of planned ICE raids in Paramount, drawing hundreds of protesters. That afternoon, demonstrators blocked traffic and confront federal agents. The FBI releases footage of individuals throwing rocks at cars. The National Guard troops arrive in Los Angeles under orders from President Donald Trump, assigned to protect federal buildings.
We're giving you a close look right now at what appears to be a closed street, and this is from Paramount, California. This is an area about a 15-20-minute drive from downtown Los Angeles, heading due south-southeast. This is a community that back in 2020 had a population of about 53,000 people. The makeup of the residential community there, over 80% is Hispanic, white 4%, black about 9%, Asian about 3%. But the important note here for this community, over 80% Hispanic makeup. This has to do with what ICE is doing, conducting raids through Southern California, 3 of which were done and met with great protests yesterday near downtown Los Angeles in the Fashion District.
Overnight, as clashes around Los Angeles intensify, President Trump stepping in, ordering 2,000 National Guardsmen to Southern California, with angry crowds protesting his administration's aggressive deportation efforts. Those National Guard troops arriving in Los Angeles County this morning.
This area, this is outside of a Home Depot there in Paramount. Home Depots are somewhat known to be a place that, particularly in the early morning hours, and we note that it's just a little afternoon, about 12:30 p.m. Los Angeles time, that they have people outside looking for work. You will have individuals hoping that they can get day labor work in construction and other areas. So let's bring in right now former FBI Supervisor Rob D'Amico. We did see clearly the presence of ICE agents there. A lot of the beef yesterday between ICE and the mayor of Los Angeles.
Day 3, June 8th, 2025. That morning, protests continue in Santa Ana, where more day laborers are arrested. Demonstrators block the 101 freeway, setting self-driving taxis on fire. Mayor Karen Bass condemns the destruction, but voices support for immigrant communities.
It follows 3 consecutive days of demonstrations after coordinated ICE operations across the city, sparking outrage and devolving into disarray. Dramatic images capturing the escalating chaos. Protests centered around the city of Paramount. Agents swarming this Home Depot there. Some protesters setting fires, breaking glass, and vandalizing buildings. Police in riot gear attempting to disperse crowds, pelting them with tear gas, flashbangs, and rubber bullets. Governor Gavin Newsom slamming Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard, which Newsom did not request, warning the move is purposefully inflammatory and will only escalate tensions. The White House defending the president's action, saying it will address the lawlessness that has been allowed to fester.
We're going to continue doing our job. We're going to push back on these people.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth even threatening to send in active duty military, posting online, if violence continues, active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton will also be mobilized. They are on high alert. In a phone call with our Los Angeles station KABC, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass refuting the notion that the city needs the National Guard's assistance.
I do not believe that that is called for, because I am confident that LAPD and other law enforcement agencies like the sheriffs can handle things in Los Angeles.
Day 4, June 9th, 2025. 700 U.S. Marines are activated to support National Guard troops. Protests remain mostly peaceful, but looting breaks out in downtown LA, affecting 23 businesses, including an Apple store and jewelry shops.
Self-driving vehicles set on fire. Crowds shutting down the 101 freeway downtown. LAPD officers trying to move them off. The moment a U.S.-based correspondent from Australia reporting on the protests. You can see there, she's hit by an officer's rubber bullet. President Trump going over the governor's head, sending the state's National Guard to the scene, and tonight he's now sending hundreds of these U.S. Marines. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, leading us off tonight on the scene in Los Angeles. Matt is one-on-one with Border Czar Tom Homan tonight.
Mayor Bass announces an 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew for downtown LA.
Sixth day in Los Angeles. Last night, LA Mayor Karen Bass declared a curfew for 1 square mile of the city's downtown, citing what she called widespread vandalism, as California Governor Gavin Newsom condemned President Trump's deployment of the military as a brazen abuse of power.
Day 5, June 10th, 2025. Protests continue despite the curfew. Farm workers in Oxnard are targeted by ICE raids. Demonstrators rally outside a federal detention center.
Typically, the federal government sends in the National Guard only at the governor's request. But Trump is bypassing Newsom, marking the first time a president has bypassed a state governor since the civil rights movement. Trump citing a specific provision of the U.S. Code on Armed Services that allows for the federal government to deploy the National Guard if there is a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States.
Condemning the immigration raids, saying these tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city.
Demanding an end to immigration enforcement. Car washes in Downey and Culver City become focal points as immigration officers chase workers. June 11, 2025. California sues the Trump administration, calling the federalization of the California's National Guard illegal. Protesters marched through downtown LA, with some throwing fireworks and rocks at officers. The curfew remains in effect, with multiple arrests for violating it.
While the majority of protests have been peaceful, in Los Angeles for a 5th consecutive night, mounted police officers swarming protesters as that curfew kicked in. Governor Gavin Newsom claiming Tuesday that democracy is under assault, requesting a federal court block President Trump's unprecedented military mobilization.
Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities.
LA Mayor Karen Bass issuing a curfew for downtown LA that could last several days, hoping it'll stop vandalism and looting of businesses.
Law enforcement will arrest individuals who break the curfew, and you will be prosecuted.
But protesters continue to pour into the streets of downtown LA.
June 12, 2025, Day 7. 700 additional Marines complete training and prepare for deployment to LA. Demonstrators blocked the 101 freeway again, cutting through a chain-link fence to access the roadway. Protests continue, with law enforcement using tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse crowds.
The LAPD has allowed several hundred protesters here to meander pretty freely right down the streets of downtown Los Angeles for several hours now. The one thing they have not allowed them to do, descend down to the 101 freeway.
And when hundreds of protesters briefly blocked traffic on the 101, police pounced.
This timeline captures the escalation of events during the first week of protests in Los Angeles. As the city struggles to regain stability, the question remains, what comes next? Stay informed and stay engaged.
Following agents to spotlight how immigration enforcement is being carried out in our communities. It's an exclusive look at what tactics are being taken and how it's impacting Southern California.
He's running. Go, go, go. A first-hand look at ICE raids ramping up across Los Angeles as anti-ICE protests also consume the city. Fox 11 this week exclusively invited to follow along immigration enforcement operations.
I'm pretty familiar with this guy because my office worked the case where he delivered fentanyl.
The agents targeting people who they say are wanted non-U.S. citizens with criminal backgrounds, using days of research to stake out homes, workplaces, and more.
What happened? She ran in her house.
One suspect getting away from agents.
Pretty quiet.
Two others never showing up to the locations. Then Thursday, ICE conducting what they call roving patrol consensual encounter apprehensions, asking people in El Monte where they're from. As for why or who they approach, agents on scene were unauthorized to answer our questions for TV.
Hey, let's find a spot so we can pat them down.
Do you know those guys?
Yeah.
What are they like?
For 2 years they're here working. They're good people. I don't want to know why they do that.
This man, determined to be a U.S. citizen, while others whose immigration status is unclear, ran from ICE agents and were apprehended on the street, handcuffed at work and outside an apartment.
New York in chaos. The first week of unrest. New York City, a beacon of resilience and diversity, has found itself at the heart of a nationwide crisis. Following the ICE raids that ignited protests in Los Angeles, tension spilled into the streets of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx.
Overnight, the protests, which have rocked downtown Los Angeles, spreading across the country in response to the Trump administration's immigration crackdown.
Hands off our students!
From Boston, Seattle, and D.C. to Milwaukee.
No Trump! No ICE! No fascist USA!
In Chicago, a car driving through a group of demonstrators.
What began as demonstrations quickly escalated into clashes with law enforcement, arrests, and unrest around the city.
In New York City, police and protesters clashing, officers pushing protesters back.
This video takes you through the first week of the New York riots, breaking down the events that shaped the city's response, the voices behind the movement, and the government's reaction.
In the city, rallies are being held globally, including here in New York City, in support of fair wages, safe workspaces, and immigrant rights.
The first week of riots in New York, June 7, 2025. Protests begin in Foley Square near City Hall in response to ICE raids. Demonstrators marched down Broadway, blocking intersections. The NYPD declares an unlawful assembly, leading to multiple arrests.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris Jose, you just heard he is in it and saw that he's in it. We're giving you the wide range look here of Fifth Avenue as this crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger as we speak. We did hear from multiple organizers and organizations that came together today for the No Kings Day protest, as we heard from immigration rights advocates, also the ACLU here in New York City, and also a couple of actors and celebrities. Mark Ruffalo and Alana Glazer spoke as well. And really what we kept hearing over and over again from the people here today is that the people have the power. The people have the power. And that's why they say they are rejecting Donald Trump's policies, the president's policies, the Trump administration's policies, especially when it comes to the immigration ICE raids that we've seen across the country. And as we are speaking to you live here, these people say they are coming to the streets of New York City and cities across the country, as what is taking place in Washington, D.C. today is a military parade that President Trump is hosting and has put together in honor of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. It also coincides with President Trump's birthday, which is today as well, along with Flag Day. And what they are saying is that that is a show of force and is just a spectacle. But what they say they are doing today is showing what democracy is really about.
June 8th, 2025, Day 2. Clashes erupt outside a federal law enforcement building with over 150 protesters confronting ICE agents. Riot police deploy tear gas to disperse crowds, and protesters regroup in Union Square, chanting against immigration enforcement.
This group behind us is Brooklyn for Peace. I want to go talk to these guys over here. I know you guys just got here about 45 minutes ago. What's today's message?
Today's message is that we don't want an oligarchy in this country. We want a restoration of democracy. This is happening all around the country. 5 to 6 million people are banding together to say no to kings, no to oligarchy. We need to refund the programs that they viciously slashed. There's a lot of lives at stake here. There's wars going on in the world. Everything is escalating. We need to put a stop to it now. And this is our message to the whole world.
Thank you so much for your time. So we just mentioned, Rana, you mentioned it, tens of thousands of people. So this is East 41st and 5th Avenue, right in front of the steps of the library here. You can see here all the signs. You mentioned Grand Central Terminal. So we were there about 45 minutes ago. I can tell you there are many restrictions in and around that area. There are police officers. There are state patrol down there. The National Guard blocking several entrances to make sure everything is safe as far as the transportation is concerned. But this crowd here, you can see it snakes around this entire block right along 5th Avenue. It's a packed crowd. The NYPD is close by monitoring the situation. Everyone here calling for a peaceful demonstration this afternoon. Everyone out here braving the rain. And I can tell you, on top of patrol, on top of officers here on the ground, you also have officers at One Police Plaza monitoring the situation, tens of thousands of cameras as well. But Rana, right now, a lot of people are starting to gather. The protests here are scheduled for 2 p.m. Rana?
All right, Chris Jose live in Midtown for us. We've seen the crowds grow, Chris, over the past hour. News 4's Jessica Cunnington also live closer to the library there, listening to folks and what they have to say, why they're out there despite the rain today, Jessica.
Day 3, June 9th, 2025. Demonstrators blocked traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge, halting movement for hours. The NYPD makes 5 arrests, citing interference with federal operations. And looting reported in Soho, targeting high-end stores.
Americans have witnessed scenes of lawlessness as radicals in Los Angeles riot to protect criminal illegal aliens. Agitators have attacked law enforcement and shut down freeways. We remain undeterred in our commitment to enforce our laws and secure the border. During recent days, the administration has taken illegal alien gang members, child predators, rapists, and burglars off the streets. Thanks to the historic action across all of government under President Trump, the border is more secure than it ever has been, with illegal border crossings at a historic low. The border crisis that unfolded under the previous administration, however, did untold damage. The Big Beautiful Bill, as an example, before Congress, will build on President Trump's progress, ensuring we have the resources to enforce our laws and secure our border.
Day 4, June 10th, 2025. Mayor Eric Adams calls for calm, urging peaceful protests. Protesters gather outside ICE headquarters, demanding an end to deportations. And NYPD increases patrols in Midtown Manhattan to prevent further looting.
Today in Washington, D.C., President Trump is going to parade through the streets with tanks and a display that he thinks makes him look strong and powerful. But that's not what real power looks like. Real power looks like you and me and everybody else here showing up despite that fear and despite the voices in our head that are trying to tell us that we're not courageous enough and not qualified enough.
And every so often we have heard the crowd just burst up in cheers. We've also seen every so often this massive crowd start to inch forward as well as they start marching south on 5th Avenue. We'll of course be here for all of it.
Day 5, June 11, 2025. Demonstrations spread to Queens with activists blocking subway entrances. Federal agents conduct additional raids, sparking renewed outrage. And protesters clash with police in Times Square, leading to more arrests.
Today by the turnout, there are thousands of people, not just crowded here on the steps of the New York Public Library, but all down 5th Avenue. They're about to start making their way downtown, marching toward Madison Square Park. And these are people of all backgrounds. I have spoken to veterans who served our military for decades who are outraged. I have spoken to people who say they've never shown up to a protest before, but they're disgusted by the imagery that they've seen coming out of Los Angeles, the aggressive immigration enforcement they've seen across the country, families that have been torn apart.
June 12, 2025. National Guard troops arrive in New York to assist law enforcement. Protesters march through Harlem, calling for immigration reform. And curfew imposed in Manhattan, restricting movement after 9 p.m.
There's a few very, 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 very wealthy, powerful people who are taking too much. It's the billionaires and it's the people in power that are taking from the American people, which is leaving us feeling desperate.
Day 7, June 13, 2025. Demonstrations continue despite curfew restrictions. NYPD reports over 500 arrests since the protests began, as city officials debate further measures to restore order.
This is really a broad coalition of people, from immigrant activists and organizers who've been doing this work for a long time to people who are very much brand new to this. But Stephanie, I want to introduce you to one person who's here with us and is speaking out today, Mark Ruffalo. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
So why does this matter? Why are people out here getting soaked in the rain to send a message?
Because we see our democracy is in real trouble.
The first week of riots in New York City has left a lasting impact. What started as protests against immigration enforcement has evolved into a broader movement, reflecting deep frustrations within the community. As the city grapples with the aftermath, the question remains, how will New York move forward?
Hey, Rana, you mentioned it. Tens of thousands of people here right now. We made our way over to East 41st and 5th Avenue.
The voices of the people, the actions of leaders, and the resilience of communities will shape the next chapter. History is unfolding and the world is watching. So stay tuned for more updates on the riots. Have a good day, guys.
Protests in Los Angeles against immigration raids spark a nationwide movement.
This is us saying you can't do this. We won't let you separate children from their families, and we're gonna fight back.
And draw a sharp federal response.
And we have deployed National Guard and the Marines to protect them in the execution of their duties.
You would have had a horrible situation had I not sent them.
Raising questions around state and federal authority.
No one asked for that help. You were talking about minor protests, but every time you do something like this, you provoke the population even further.
And how the military should be used on U.S. soil.
They're not trained and they do not exercise in crowd control or de-escalation of things like that.